Are you feeling the calling to start or grow a business that is so aligned with you and everything that makes up who you are? Do you know that there has to be a way to do this without so much hustle and without chasing the latest shiny object, but you're just not sure how? You can definitely have a dream business that improves, not consumes your life, that allows you to work with soulmate clients while helping you and your family financially and in all ways. You can elevate yourself to be the entrepreneur who has all of her desires. I'm going to show you how on the Elevated Femmes movement. Hi, welcome to another episode on the Elevated Femmes movement. I was just going to say fit. That was my original podcast, the Fit Femmes movement. So I had that on my mind. But today I have Carin Hunt on here with me, and she is a wedding business coach, and she has a background in the wedding event industry. So she has some, I think, she's got a very unique story and a unique background as to compared to a lot of the people that I brought on here. So I'm just excited to chat with you, Carin. I actually was on Carin's podcast not too long ago. So now we are chatting on here again. So make sure you check out her podcast and you can hear our conversation there. So welcome, Carin. I'm so happy to have you here and to chat some more with you today. I hope that you're doing great, and tell us a little bit about you and how you got started with your current business, and then what you're doing nowadays with your business.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So when we did our original conversation on my podcast, it was funny because a lot of my listeners, they got excited because they're like, "Oh, Carin started a podcast." And then they got excited about our conversation because it's like, do I start a podcast? Is this the route I go? And we can get into some of that today too. But it's been a really fun journey, and it was a really fun conversation to get your perspective too, because you're an expert in what you do. And so I'm like listening, and I wrote notes and all the things too. So I appreciate all that. I started, I was actually telling this story to a friend today that my whole entrepreneur journey started when I was about 7 years old. My mom was going to school. She was going to college for the first time, and she chose the track to be a graphic designer. And she saw that I was interested in the creativity behind it. And if you can imagine, when I was 7, I'm 35 now. So whatever year that was, we had the box computer, it was Gateway, I think was the name of the.
Oh yeah.
So that, when we're talking about branding software, this was Canva 0.00001, right? It came in a paper box, and it took 4 hours to load into the computer. And basically what it was you could go in, create a logo off of random graphics, stock photos that they had that you loaded. And then you would print them off onto cardstock, and you would cut on the lines, and then you could fold a card or create a box and so I started my first marketing business when I was 7, and I called it the Stop Shop, and I sat on the edge of the street like it was a lemonade stand, and people would stop by and they would order greeting cards from me or little gift.
Oh,
and it was just I was 7. I don't know. Even I did a 2 truths and a lie on my Instagram recently, and everybody thought that was the lie. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm one of the rare ones that started real early. So that was kind of when my entrepreneur spirit lit up. And then from there, clearly I was unlike any other child, and I felt really lost, and I didn't feel like I had a place in the world. And my best friend found me. I say she found me because she walked up to me and said, "Will you be my best friend?" And she was the one in college who was "Stop changing your major. You need to be a party planner. That's just who you are." And I said, "I don't think that you can get a degree in that." And then lo and behold, we were at the second most prestigious college to offer hospitality management. I got a degree in event management specifically. I worked for luxury boutique resorts. I worked for flagship hotels. And all of that led me to have my own business, which I was in for 7 years. I was a destination wedding planner. And then I know this is a little long, but this is the whole story. So
Give us a whole scoop. It's all good.
Yeah, I have fun with my stories. So I hope other people do. I within my career as a wedding planner, I loved On the Brides. I loved what I did. And then the last 3 years, I brought on my business partner. And during those last 3 years was when I realized how much I loved working with the vendors. We started having people coming up to us and saying, Carin, who did your website? I'm like, I did. Can you do my website too? I'm like, okay. Can you do my couples websites? Who did your logo? How do what CRM platform are you using? Like all these different things. And we were consulting people for free, essentially. So we started these networking events because I live in the Florida Keys. And if you can imagine, there's not a lot of continued education down here, especially for such a specialized niche. So we kind of had to create it on our own. So we held these bi-monthly networking events. Through COVID, I held Zoom meetings so that we could all brainstorm and learn together about SBA loans and how to navigate and all these things. And those last 3 years, we also started a boutique wedding show where we only had 30 vendors and 90% of the vendors would book at least one wedding every time. And so very successful, super excited about all of it. But towards the end was when I had my son, was when COVID happened. I was leaning more into the vendors education, and my partner was like, Carin, do we need to pivot here? Like, like I'm paying attention to all the clients and, you seem unplugged or going a different direction. And so I decided to retire from planning, went back into corporate, back to a 9 to 5 so that I could spend nights and weekends with my family and really dig deep. And what came out of it was, through all the coal came the diamond, which was Celebration Pros. So I hired my first high-level coach and really learned how to build the business as a coaching business. Obviously, I knew how to build a business, but this was a different industry that I was kind of pulling into. And so now what I do is I empower creative entrepreneurs to build businesses worth celebrating through low-cost marketing strategies. And that's the skinny of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you started at the very young age of 7. That's where you realize, I can learn this skill and then I can use it to create something and make money. And even though you didn't continue doing that exact same thing, that was sort of like the beginning of something that later on brought you to where you are now, which I always think is fascinating because I think there's this misconception that a lot of people, even people who even seasoned entrepreneurs, and I'm not even just talking about newer entrepreneurs, but seasoned entrepreneurs almost feel like they need to be married to their business. They need to be married to their programs. And if they need to make a change or make a pivot, then it's like, oh, it's a failure. It means I failed at this or I failed at that. And I need to
Right.
just focus. But the beauty of being an entrepreneur is that we are idea people. We are creative. We have to evolve. And that means things change. We can't stay the same forever, which I think is great. I think that's a really great thing. So now tell us, so Celebration Pro started. And how did you decide to start a podcast? Because I get that question from a lot of people. Or actually, it's not a question. It's more of a statement of I've been thinking about starting a podcast for the past year or for the past 2 years. And now I think I'm ready, but I don't know if I'm ready, So how did you know that you were ready? What was the journey to, from idea to podcast launch?
Right. To the actual thing happening. So when I was a wedding planner, obviously I had the heart for marketing. And so I just fell into the role of being the face of the company. When I brought my partner on, she was very logistical. I was the creative. She made sure that everything held together with finances and spreadsheets and all the things and contracts and all of that. So, which of course I was still part of. I do know about that too, but I was really heavy on marketing and design. And so from there, when we started doing the networking events, a lot of times I was the one speaking. I was standing up and teaching the people in front of me, our community of wedding professionals, how to navigate something or learn something or something new that came out in the industry, whatever that might be. a lot of times, like when we had the wedding shows, I was the voice on the commercials that we had locally. So it came a little more naturally to me, but I think it was always because I always walked to the beat of my own drum. I didn't go with the flow of what society, it's like if society was going this way, I was like going cross current because I still wanted to hit everybody. So it was just, it's come a little bit more naturally to me to step out and say, like, hello, this is me. This is what I do. And if somebody else isn't into that, I'm still afraid of that I still get imposter syndrome. I'm still wondering if like, is this the right path? You know, we all have those moments in our businesses where we have doubts, but I've just gotten really good at pushing through that fear. So when it came to the podcasting, it wasn't on my radar at all. I really wasn't listening to podcasts until I joined network marketing. And then some of the high ups in my network marketing business, they had podcasts. And I was like, okay, started listening to those, listened to like 3 of them and went down the rabbit hole, right? And then I heard an interview with who I ended up booking as my business coach. And so that's just like the power of podcasting. And I saw it. I went through the steps of this is how I found this person. And I said, well, if that works for her, why couldn't it work for me? And then she actually teaches a lot on how you want to get in front of other people's audiences. And that just made so much sense to me. The biggest thing we did in our business to grow was to organically get out there and tell people what we do. And so podcasting really is just a whole new avenue for me specifically, because I wasn't a part of the podcasting space, to take advantage of these conversations, to create connections and new relationships and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed a couple of the great benefits of starting a podcast. For me, when I started my podcast, I literally, if like somebody had told me a month before I made the decision to start a podcast, or even like a week before I started, somebody had said to me like, oh, you're going to start a podcast, I would have been like, what? What? Because I had imposter syndrome. I totally did. Even through like the launch, even after like the first few episodes, I was like, what am I doing? Because you feel like, we hear about all these, super mega successful entrepreneurs out there, some who have been in business for decades, and, they have great followings and they're known worldwide. And then you're like, and then there's my podcast, right? So you almost feel like, how can I stand out? Like, how can I? And the thing is, you can't, and you don't compare to that. And there's people who are going to gravitate towards your podcast over, the really popular guru who's been around for decades or whatever, because your stories, your experiences, they're going to be able to relate to those more than they can relate to, the guru over here. So I think that's also something to keep in mind when we're going through imposter syndrome or comparing ourselves to others, whether it's, the guru from, who started 10 whatever years ago,
right?
Or even just somebody who we see, the Instagram filters and the Instagram success stories. So we have to. What I always tell people when they tell me, like, I think I'm going to start a podcast, I just don't know if I have a big enough audience, or I don't really know, like, what, how to stand out or what to really focus on my podcast. I always say, number one, if you have a message, you have something in your heart that you want to share, you're probably ready. Because there's probably somebody who needs to hear that message. And then, like if somebody says, I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about. The thing about a podcast that I love is that it's like a series, right? It's something that evolves with you. And I've used that word evolve a lot, but it helps to take somebody on a journey with you. So like people want the behind the scenes, right? They want to like know what you're working on. Case studies do you have to share? What free offers do you have that you can invite people to? People want to know all that stuff. If you're giving them value, they're going to want to hear more from you. So, Carin, as far as somebody who is a creative entrepreneur, so let's, specifically in the wedding or let's say event planning industry,
Mhm.
how would you say that what would you say to somebody who is, let's say, a wedding event planner or a wedding, like a wedding photographer? I don't know, I always think of photographers and I think of like
Yeah.
wedding industry people, but I think a podcast could be a great tool for them. What would you say to somebody if somebody came to you, they're like, Carin, I want to hire you as my coach. Do you think I should start a podcast?
Yeah. So something interesting that you had mentioned before was, a lot of times it's like, well, what do we say? Like we see the value in what a podcast can offer. We see that getting in front of more eyes is a great, or ears or whatever, is a great way to get the word out about what you're doing. But what do you say? Right. And I think that's really where people stop. It's like, these are all great ideas, but then the actual like implementation or stepping out and actually getting the message out there and doing the thing is what holds us back. So there's two different exercises that people can do so that they can feel more comfortable speaking. The first would be to write down a list. I always try and do it the weeks, right? So 52. Think of 52 things that you can speak on. And they could even be similar because say you talk about the best first dance with for mother-son, and then later in the year you talk about the best first dances for father-daughter, or the best first dances for you and you know what I mean? So it could be similar, but think of 50 different topics that you can speak on in your profession. And this could work for anyone in the wedding industry or outside of. So it took me 20 minutes to get to 52. So this does not take a long time. As soon as you start writing, it might take you a minute to like start thinking of them, but you'll get on a roll. And then the second thing that you can do, so one, you've got your 50 topics, right? Your 52 topics. Now you're set for the year.
Yeah. Boom. Wow. I love that. I love that. This is great for anybody. Like, what are 52 things that you can talk about, like in that relate to what you do? And boom.
Yeah. And then that creates your long form content, and then you can pull that everywhere. That's like a whole different podcast on repurposing. But the other thing you can do, which is a really fun exercise, and I'll kind of give the short version of it because I could do a whole podcast on it, but this just gives somebody a tool to walk away with, is to think of a moment in your life when you felt like you were your best self. This could be when you had your first child, when you graduated, when you quit your 9 to 5, when you chose to go after your passion, when you put a lot of time and effort in helping somebody else succeed, and that feeling you got when they reached their goal. So think of a time when you felt like you were your very best self. And then once you have that time in your mind, you want to think of 5 adjectives that describe how you felt in that moment. And those 5 adjectives become your North Star. So for example, mine, it has to do with the wedding shows that we put on. It was just like the most magical thing I've ever been a part of or put on. And the words that came to me were empower, illuminate, connect, celebrate, and confidence. I could very easily speak on these 5 words. That could be 5 episodes right there, just talking about each word. My word of the year is illuminate. I could talk about illuminating all day long. And so what happens when you do that is those 5 words, they end up becoming like your brand values in a way, and you can kind of take them with you through business. But it's something that's a part of you that will always bring out your best self, and that you could I would hope that you would feel very confident in speaking on something in your business that's made you feel confident, something or someone who's empowered you or you've empowered them. And you just go through the list. So those are 2 exercises. If anybody's feeling stuck on, I'm ready to get started. What are some first steps in the actual topics to speak about? And then people are going to relate to you because you're pulling these right from you.
I love that. 2 very simple but powerful exercises for when you're feeling a little stuck as to like what to talk about. I'm gonna keep the second one in mind.
Yeah.
So speaking of like, niche experts, right? Niche industry, wedding industry experts. How can they stand out? So I love, first of all, let's back up there a minute. I love how you are, you're a speaker, so you have that expertise and you're great at helping people like those 2 exercises, you can help people come up with their, start brainstorming their stories, those powerful stories that are going to really help them connect to their ideal clients and customers and collaboration partners. What are some things that you think or that help people stand out as far as, in their branding? They want to be known. They want to be the Gucci of their industry. So what are some things that make a difference?
Yeah. So I love this question because a lot of times we go in thinking that everybody is our client. And I know we've all heard this. I know I'm in your ears and you're like, please don't say ideal client. Right. But that's really what we're all looking for is that person who we love to work with and who loves working with us and gives us not only the 5-star review, but the next 5 events or bookings or whatever. So yeah, we are looking for that ideal client. So when we're thinking about that, there's a couple things we want to think about. One is, where do we want to be in our market? So you mentioned, we want to be the Gucci, but not everybody does. Some people want to be the DIY wedding planner. I'm just going to use wedding planners as an example because it'll come more naturally for me. So maybe you want to be the DIY wedding planner and you want to be known as the planner who does DIY. Actually, I had a venue that I worked with who she didn't want the luxury weddings. She wanted the brides who DIY. And then you have the planners and the venues who are high-end luxury, very upscale, price tag matches it, all the things, right? So do we want to be, if you're DIY, you're not going to be marketing yourself in, the high-end luxury magazines. That doesn't make sense. Your client's not there. And vice versa, the high-end planner isn't going to be marketing on Facebook. That's not where their client is. I heard recently, I think it was Lamborghini who said, we don't advertise online. We don't have television ads because our clients don't watch TV. And I guarantee you're not going to see a Cheetos ad in Success Magazine. So you really want to think about where you're showing up and where your client is actually watching you. Because if you're in the luxury market and you're posting, white folding chairs and DIY centerpieces, someone's going to look at you and say, that's not a match. That's out of alignment. And if you're just starting out and you're more the DIY side or the low budget bride or client, wherever you are in your industry, and you're posting more elaborate things, maybe you're pulling stock photos off Canva that are really elaborate, they're going to think, oh, I don't think they're the right fit for me because I can't afford that. So we really want to see first and foremost, where are you on the spectrum? Because not everybody is our client. So if we're really trying to align ourselves with that person that we want to work with, we want to be speaking their language, essentially, whether it's copy, keywords, verbally, through imagery and graphics and photos, the way that you show up, we want to make sure that you're speaking their language. Does that answer the question? I feel like I went on a tangent.
Yes. No, that was a great answer.
Okay.
And one of the, I think, lesser spoken about benefits of podcasting is the networking, right? The networking of, because a lot of times people think like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast so I can have guests and then they're going to share me on their, to their audience. And then I'm going to get leads because people are going to sign up. And yes, while that can happen, that sometimes takes a little bit of time. But what can be like an instant win is the connection between host and guest. Like sometimes you just vibe with that person and there you go. You just met like your new business bestie, right? Like your next, referral partner, affiliate partner, collaboration. Like you guys can do something else together. You could just support each other online because let's share. Let's be honest. Like being an entrepreneur can be a bit lonely. So it's nice to have like your online buddies, or even if it's not online, but your business buddies who are there to support you and to cheer you on and to, be the first ones to like and comment on your posts. So that is, I think, one of the like most instant wins that people don't really talk about. And from that, we can talk about how that is similar to word of mouth, which for the wedding industry is, it's crucial, right? Like I mean, for any business, referrals are the best way to get clients. So can you tell me a little bit more, or tell us a little bit more about, your thoughts on word of mouth marketing and, your take on that and how you see podcasts?
Yeah. So,
aligning
low
that.
cost marketing is like my jam, and no cost marketing is even better, which is word of mouth.
Mhm.
So I don't really like to say show up everywhere, because you want to be focused on the right things, right? Again, we want to be in alignment with who our client is, not only who our client is though, but who we're collaborating with. And that certainly falls in line with podcasts. We want to make sure who our guests are and who we're interviewing and being interviewed by matches this, go back to those 5 values. Are we in alignment with, what our mission is here and speaking to everybody? And so I have so many examples of this. So first of all, I met my accountability partner, my like business bestie, through a mastermind. The mastermind I found via podcast. Now, right? So it starts at the podcast, booked with my coach, booked her mastermind, met my business bestie. And now if you go over to my podcast and you see the Carin and Kaylee show, we co-host a podcast every so often. We just did a recording earlier today.
Wow.
So now, and she's in the wellness space, I'm in the wedding space. So we're speaking to different people, but a lot of it overlaps. So it's fun to get in front of an audience that you may not have gotten in front of otherwise that can benefit. Another example is I recently had somebody who asked to be on my podcast, and I booked her program. So I'm one of her clients. So it's this interaction happens so often. And so even if you don't have a podcast, consider doing a podcast tour, which is where you actually go and be interviewed, just like Julie is interviewing me right now, so that you can get the word out about your business. But not only that, you're connecting with Julia, and who knows what's next for you. Maybe you are interested in having a podcast and she ends up coaching you through how to build that. Or maybe she knows somebody who could help you in something, in a struggle that you're having in your business. You just never know the connections. And again, connections, one of my 5 value words. And I'm all about community rising. If we can all help each other rise, we're going to get there so much faster. So absolutely, I think podcasting is a huge benefit to networking.
I love that. And yes, can so resonate with all of that, and big love to all that.
Yeah. We've been on each other's podcasts, right?
Exactly. So we stayed connected, because I think sometimes it can also happen. And this is sort of like, if somebody's considering being a podcast guest, it's something to keep in mind that trying to go on as many podcasts as you can I would say that's not the best strategy. I would say being more intentional and being like, okay, do I resonate with this person, with, his or her message, what they're trying to do, who they serve? And then if yes, then, you pitch yourself. And then that way it's like a very honest and genuine pitch. And they're going to be able to tell that you're being really genuine, not just like, hi, I really want to talk about my business. So can I come on your podcast? Because I've gotten those pitches, but it's more about like, okay, hey, I see that you focus on XYZ. I think that I can talk about XYZ because maybe your audience might resonate with that. If not, let me know. I can think of something else, right? So making it really genuine and making it about the person and their mission, I think it's a key to pitching yourself to like a more aligned podcast. And then from there, like, don't stop connecting with that person. Like, after I interviewed Carin, like, I connected with her on social media because I love what she's doing. So I want to like build a connection with her. It wasn't just like, okay, thanks for being my guest. See you later. Good luck.
Yeah, right.
So think about that too. That's how you build genuine connections. It's you keep going, like you keep interacting with the person, and you keep supporting each other. So Carin, this was so great. If people want to learn more about Celebration Pros and all the great things that you do, besides your podcast, which is Celebration Pros also, where can they go? What are the best places for them to connect with you?
So my favorite place would be our Facebook community, because it's a free group where I do like free workshops, and I offer templates, like all the free resources are there. Plus you're connecting with, right now we have about 100 members, and that's growing. So you get to join like-minded pros. You can drop questions in there. I do Q&A sessions, like all the things are there to support you as you move forward in your business. And then if you want to work with me a little more intimately, I do offer one-on-ones and intensives. And you can learn more about all that at Carin, Carin, CarinHunt.com. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So make sure you check out Carin's Facebook group and connect with her. Thank you so much again, Carin. I'm so glad that you came on my show. And if you guys are listening, make sure you go look up her podcast, Celebration Pros, and check out the episode that we did together. So I hope that you guys all have a great day, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you for listening to the Elevated Femmes Movement. I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, so please leave us a review. If you know someone who could benefit from the episodes on the show, please share it with them. We need more women elevating to their highest potential, enjoying all the great things in life, having plenty of time freedom for their children and loved ones, while doing things smarter and not harder, and growing a business that improves, not consumes their life. To connect with me and download my free resources, please go to www.juliamhickman.com.